What's going on YouTube? Welcome to episode 137 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button helping me and supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And be sure to check out the Discord channel. I have a link in the description below. Right now I'm doing a poll on what my next ship build is going to be. And if you want to participate in that once you join the Discord, click on next ship build, and you'll be able to vote on a list that I've generated based off the top requests that I've gotten on Minecraft. Now, for whatever reason, if you look through that list and there's not something on there that you'd like to see me build, be sure to click on build suggestions. You can go on there and make suggestions on whatever you'd like to see me do, and the community can upvote them. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and jump right into today's episode. We've got about 26 minutes, and we're just going to get rocking and rolling on this. Right now we are on the crew deck, and we're going to be working with the left and right sides. So what we're really going to be filling in or working on is adding in our doorways, which will eventually become either fully fleshed out crew quarters or facades for crew quarters. And we're not only going to be doing them for this deck, we'll be doing them for the crew deck that we're on now, and we'll also be going a deck above us to the medical deck and having them in the same exact placement. This was something I've been talking about a little bit that I'm not quite sure that I'm going to just have enough time to fill in a lot of the interior on the ship, because we're already on episode 137. And there's just so much work left to be done on this build. I think what I'm ultimately going to end up doing, like on these straightaways on the left and right side, excuse me, I had something stuck in my throat there. But we're going to end up doing for the left and right side, for the crew quarters, I'll probably actually end up doing one because they're going to be smaller. And I'll have those two templates. I'll have, our standard quarters template, and then the smaller one to go with it. So this way you guys can actually go in and add these wherever you want on the crew deck of the ship. And this will help me save just a little bit of time working on this thing. Now, we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up this week. I was already looking through what the episodes are going to be this week, and we'll be working on the cargo room as well as the secondary and tertiary shuttle bay control room. So that'll be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to getting into that. But while this is going on, I figure we talk about some cool stuff. I don't know if those of you that have been watching Star Trek Picard, it's season 2 has been it's been kind of interesting. I'm not gonna lie. I called it that Girardi and the Borg Queen were going to fuse together, and I'm still not overly fond that they're turning the Borg into allies. Well, not necessarily allies to the Federation, but I'd say neutral is probably a better word. I think that next to Q, they're the best villain that was on Star Trek The Next Generation. And I called it in episode 1 when the Borg Queen showed up and she had a mask on and she came through that rift. I was like, there's something going on there. And then as soon as they started working in that storyline that Girardi and the Queen had kind of fused together, I was like, yep, I'm calling it now. She's going to end up being the Queen that was in episode 1 of season 2. And I don't know, like, season 2 of Picard has been pretty good, but, like, the whole plot line in the past so far, like, I said this before, I feel like they could have done this in, like, 2 or 3 episodes tops. They've really, and it's not that I didn't enjoy the, some of the stuff that they've done, but the point that I'm trying to make is that, like, this whole plot line with, like, what happened to Picard's mother, we've pretty much have spent the entire season on it, and this is a huge spoiler, so if you haven't watched the last episode yet, may want to mute for the next couple of minutes. But we find out that she killed herself when he was very young and that she had a lot of mental issues. And, I mean, that was, it was a little bit gut-wrenching, but did we really need to spend 5 episodes, almost, well, 3 episodes, 3 or 4. I forget if we're on episode 5 or 6 now. Because I'll give them credit. The first 2 episodes weren't about the time where they weren't back in San Francisco and focusing on that too much. But I feel like they've spent a little bit too much time there, and that could have been something that they spent a lot less time on. I feel like season 2 of Picard, in some ways, they've really kind of spun their tires in one place, and they really haven't done anything. They went to the past to try to stop the Confederation from happening, but as soon as they go back there, it kind of skews off to a different storyline, and I'm not really feeling it all that much. I think if anything, like after 2 episodes when they were in the past, I was ready for them to come back. I was like, all right, let's get back to the future. Wrap this up. Let's move on to the next thing. And they really, I've kind of dragged it out to the point where I feels like they're probably going to be in the past for the remainder of the season. They probably won't end up going back until the very last episode, which is kind of unfortunate. I was hoping that there would be more of a proper lead up to bringing the TNG crew cast back, and kind of foreshadowing things to come for season 3. But I'm not gonna lie, I've got my doubts that they're gonna deliver on season 3. I'm trying to check my expectations because it really it seems like they're not going to deliver on what I'd like to see anyway. Because and it's kind of crazy too. Because I really don't have overly ridiculous expectations. I just want to see the main crew come back, be with Picard for the season, and have a worthwhile story that maybe ties into all good things a little bit. I think that it would also be a huge missed opportunity if they don't explain what happened to the Enterprise E. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I mean, they could say anything. They could say that the Enterprise E was retired or something, and maybe by the time season 3 comes out, maybe they make Riker an admiral. Maybe he just decides, for that last season, you know what? I'm going to pull the Enterprise E out of decommissioned status, and this will be the ship that we use for last season, which would be very reminiscent of All Good Things, because I believe that in that 2-parter that they wanted to, it was mentioned by Admiral Riker that they were going to retire the Enterprise D, and he wouldn't let them. And he was like, one of the perks of being admiral is that you get to choose your own ship. So that's something that I'd kind of hope that they do. I don't know, there's a lot of cool things that I'd like to see them do on the final season of Picard. But again, I've got my doubts on how that's going to go. I really do. Nothing against Patrick Stewart, but I think that it was kind of a mistake on their part to make Patrick Stewart a producer, because we've gotten to see exactly, his influence. And it's, the show has been just about him and a bunch of plot points that really have been kind of unnecessary, just so Patrick Stewart can flex his acting chops. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I don't think anybody would question that Patrick Stewart's a fantastic actor. And that's definitely not what I'm doing here. Only thing I'm questioning is the quality of season 2 so far. And I feel like the hype isn't matching what they've produced so far. Put it this way, I'm actually more excited about Strange New Worlds at this point than I am for Picard. I'm still checking out the episodes as they're coming in, but yeah, Strange New Worlds I've got a lot of hope for. I really, hope that they look at what hasn't worked with Star Trek Discovery and what hasn't worked with Picard, and, really delivering on that episodic element that was present with the original Star Trek shows, which is what made them so great. Because if a storyline or an episode wasn't all that great, well, it's not a big deal, because they just move on to the next one, the next episode, rather than it carrying on through the entire season. And that's why I've not necessarily given up hope for Picard, but my expectations have dropped significantly, because I think I mentioned this before, that they've filmed season 2 and season 3 back to back. So they're not going to have the benefit that they had with the break between season 1 and 2, getting the fan feedback, hearing what the fans liked, hearing what they didn't like. So that's why I'm kind of expecting what we got out of season 2. It's going to be more of the same for season 3. There wasn't enough time for them to take any type of constructive criticism to apply that to the final season of Picard. But Strange New Worlds, it seems like they're very, very well aware that, at least with that show anyway, that the season-long plot lines don't work with Star Trek. And at least with the storylines that they're choosing and the way that they're milking them out. And that it's just better at that point to bring it back to an episodic format, and maybe have, certain aspects of storylines carrying over, which I don't really have a problem with. They kind of did that with TNG a little bit, that it's not like these were just one-off episodes and they didn't make sequels to them, or that the actions of previous episodes didn't affect future ones. But the great thing about that is that a lot of them were one and done, and it gave a really great opportunity for them to do a lot of really cool things with the show. That's why I hold Star Trek. Some people might disagree with me, and that's okay. Everyone's gonna have their favorite, but to me, TNG was the best series out of all of them. That's counting the original series, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise, and then the new ones. I think TNG was really hitting on all the cylinders. Maybe not so much in season 1. By the time they got into end of season 2, and then throughout the remainder of the series, and then even into the movies, they were hitting on all cylinders, with an exception of Star Trek Insurrection and maybe most of Star Trek Nemesis. You'll have me there, but for the most part, they really did a really good job of delivering on an ongoing storyline, but breaking them down episodically and splitting, things up the way that they did. It was just fantastic, and I hope that they do more of that. It seems like that's the way that they're going with Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. I'm still worried about them bringing Kirk on, though, especially what I heard online that they're going to do to his character, where that they're going to change it. And then not only that, I wasn't expecting that to be like a thing for like maybe the first 5 or 6 seasons, because they just released the new intro for the show, and Pike says that it's going to be another 5-year mission. So it would kind of almost make sense that maybe Kirk wouldn't show up until maybe the final season. I could be wrong, but I could have sworn that in TOS, they mentioned that Kirk, towards the end of Pike's run, was first officer to Pike. So that's why I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe he'll show up in the last season of Strange New Worlds to kind of lead into that. I wasn't expecting them to do it quite so fast in season 2. And I believe I ended up being wrong, because somebody had told me, no, he wasn't Pike's first officer. And what they're doing, they're actually changing the canon of the series. We'll kind of have to see how that plays out. I'm kind of undecided on that. Certain things I can kind of let it go, but they really got to be careful with that to see what's going to work and what's going to conflict with what they've done in the past. I think that's one of the problems with them doing some of these legacy shows, that the current producers don't seem to care too much about the canon. I think that was one of the only good things what they did with Discovery in the later seasons, that they went so far in the future that they didn't have to abide by that anymore. And to be honest, that's what they should have did to begin with. They should have set Discovery 1,000 years in the future on episode 1, season 1, or they should have set it in an alternate timeline, just like the Kelvin era, so that they can just do whatever they want. But now, since you're working within the prime timeline, now you're having to abide by all this stuff. And I've had people get mad at me for saying this, but when they don't do that, it is what it is. It's lazy writing, because they're not doing their homework to see what's done before, and they're like, oh well, they won't pay attention. I mean, trust me. Maybe not so much with some of these other properties, but with Star Trek, all I gotta say is you better know your stuff because the fans are gonna call you out on this stuff, you know. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think if anything, I'm still very excited to be a Star Trek fan right now. There's so much content coming out. I just hope that they get better, and it wouldn't be such a bad idea for them to bring on more talent creatively behind the scenes. Somebody that it blows my mind that he's not a part of the creative process with Star Trek right now is Jonathan Frakes. If you've watched, I mean, the movie that he did, Star Trek First Contact, that was the best TNG movie that they did. And the episodes that he did of Discovery, I mean, they were actually really, really good. And it kind of blows my mind a little bit that he's not involved more with the creative process behind the scene because it really seems like he's got a pretty clear grasp of what Star Trek actually is. Um, but yeah, I mean, we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens. Anyway, getting a little bit what we got going on here, you can see that we're slowly but surely adding in our corridor doorways here. I was actually considering not including this episode, and I was thinking about like, well, you know what? I'm going to be working with 2 decks here, adding in all these doorways. I probably should include it in the tutorial. This way people can be on the same page as me. So like I was saying, you know, these entryway points, you can see some of them I'm closing off. I'm doing that in this video to show you that you can make these into facades if you don't feel like fleshing them out. Because again, there's just going to be so much room on this ship that we have to work with that it's not going to be realistic to close in, to fill in most of the interior on this thing. So that's why I'm kind of just focused on going down my list of all the things that I want to do and then kind of just moving on from that. I've stopped asking, you know, people what they want to see me do on the Enterprise D at this point because I don't think that I'm going to be adding anything else other than what I've done already, recording wise. There might be 1 or 2 things that I might do before this thing is done. There's still some things that I do actually have to do because I've still yet to complete all the windows and the registration. But that's something that I usually wait until the end to do. And we still have a little bit before we're going to get to that point. But that'll be coming up. But you know, this is it's ended up being a really long build. Like I get people commenting on my YouTube. They're like, "You're still working on this thing?" I'm like, yes, I'm still working on the Enterprise D. This thing has taken up over a year of my life, and it's just the way it is. And you know, it's funny because I've had a few people joke around with me like, "Why don't you do a full scale?" And it's like, "Are you trying to kill me?" Because I'd be working on this thing for 5 years easily. Because we're at the point where we're starting to cut some corners here and there just to try to get through this thing. And my Enterprise D is half the scale of a full-scale Galaxy class. So we would have done a full scale. We've been here for easily 5 years, if not longer. Because this is a solo build. You know, I do all these builds by myself, and you know, I enjoy it. I've had some people ask me here and there if I want to do a collaboration, but I think at this point I'm just happy doing the videos on my own. This way I can kind of just do whatever I want to do. But that might be a thing down the road. I don't know. If that were to ever happen, that would be something that would happen, you know, very organically. I probably wouldn't ever do a collaboration just because somebody asked me to. But as the other thing too, this is honestly one of the reasons why I don't usually look to do that is because I mean I can be very picky with what I want, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've just kind of haven't even thought about doing a lot of collaborations, if at all any. Because this way, when I do these builds by myself, I can just do whatever I want and do it at my own pace, where I don't have to worry about somebody else getting involved with it. Um, but you know, the Enterprise D, she's looking pretty good so far. You know, we still have some work to do, but you know, it's a slow crawl, but we're just slowly going down that checklist, getting one thing done at a time. And you know, for those of you that are looking to get into working on a mega build, these are the things that you're ultimately going to have to consider. How much time am I going to have to put into this thing? And then not only that, the amount of just to build the shell of it, but then the amount of time it's going to take to fill in that interior, and not have just a bunch of duplicates, and really try to flesh it out as much as you possibly can. This is one of the main reasons why I've said that Enterprise D is probably going to be the last mega build that I do, unless I figure out a way to build these things in a fraction of the time that it's taken me to do this, and then also in my recording sessions as well. I know I've had some people asking me for DS9. Even though it's not currently winning out in the polls that I have for my Discord channel right now in the next ship build, I think that's something that I probably will ultimately do one day, regardless whether it wins that poll or not. But even if I do DS9 at some point, it's not going to be a full scale. It'll probably be a scaled down version of it, just to help with the length of time that it would take to build that thing. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of cool things coming up on the channel going forward. We've got immediately following this, we've got the community request build, which is probably going to end up being Voyager. Right now, that's just destroying all the other ships in the poll right now, and that's going to end up being the next one. And as we creep along to get closer to 1,000 subscribers, once we hit 1,000, I'm going to be doing that tutorial on the Star Trek Beyond U.S.S. Enterprise A 1.1 refit. I'm really looking forward to that, and I can't wait to get into that one. But we're going to be saving it until we get to 1,000. What's probably going to end up happening prior to that build, this may not happen until sometime either in May or June. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm going to be having I did a couple of videos on getting a 3D model version of it done so I can have it printed, and I'm looking to have that done probably in May. And whenever that happens, I'll probably I want to figure out how I can record working on that thing, and whether I have to sand it down in areas and paint it and prime it, paint it, and all that stuff, and then get the decaling and detail the ship. I'm probably going to end up doing that. There's some things I have to look into in order to do that, because that's going to be a different type of recording than what I normally do, because especially with the screen capture of the games, this will kind of be very different. I'll have to probably get like a tripod for my phone or something and record it that way, or buy like a cheap camera, because those cameras nowadays they're not that expensive. So that could be something that I end up doing. We'll see. It all depends, because I've had a few people ask for that, because that could be something that I might do. Another thing that I might end up doing very, very soon, and this was a reason why I didn't have videos out in the end of last week. Prehistoric Kingdom just came out on Steam, and I'm probably going to be doing a couple of videos on that. I've been messing around with the game here and there. I want to get a little bit more familiar with it before I do any type of playthrough or tutorial for something. But that's going to be something that's going to be coming up, because I've really been messing or just playing the crap out of that game since it came out. And those of you that played Jurassic World Evolution 1 and 2, this is the game that both of those should have been, in my opinion. I mean, I gave them credit. I gave them a lot of slack for the first one, because I get it that they had, Frontier said that they had time constraints to get this game done. They had a year to make JWE1. And when the second one came out, or when they announced the second one, I was like, okay, you guys have been working on this for like 3 years at this point. So I'm expecting nothing short of being on the same par of Planet Zoo, and I won't accept anything less. And they blew me away, and not in a good way either, because JWE2 was basically Jurassic or JWE1 with better flyers and some aquatic dinos. They didn't deliver on the sequel at all, in my opinion, and they kind of crapped on the franchise a little bit. But I mean, uh, it's not necessarily a bad thing because that kind of got a lot of attention on Prehistoric Kingdom because it's crazy. Like that game, it's still an early release, um, but so there's a lot of stuff that they're still adding to it. But it's just like um, Planet Planet Zoo. It's fantastic. You can individually build your structures up, and there's not a lot of park options right now for maintenance and taking care of the park because again it's still early access, but these are all things that they're going to be adding into the game, and pretty much like everything on that game, that even what they have right now is already like 10 times better than JWE2. The only good thing about JWE2, and I didn't mention this before, was the campaign mode. The campaign mode was pretty fun, but I had the same problem with JWE2 that I had with the first one, that after you beat the game, there's only so much that you can do until you get incredibly bored with the game, and that, you know, the new feels of seeing the Moza come out of the water for the first time and seeing the updated graphics with the new dinosaurs, that gets old really really fast. And like, I gotta be honest, I've had no desire to play the game whatsoever. I actually haven't even beaten the campaign well, no, I beat the main campaign, but the Chaos Theory mode with all the storylines based on all the different moves, I haven't even beaten that because I've already gotten bored of it because I feel like I already did this with the first one. But no, it's fantastic what they're doing with Prehistoric Kingdom, and I think that's going to be something that I'll probably end up doing here because one of the things I want to stick to in my channel is doing videos for creative builds or run-throughs on or playthroughs with creative builds. Um, and that could be anything. That could be whether that's, you know, playing a game on Xbox or PC, or working on a custom design model. This is going to be a lot of stuff that you'll see me doing in the future to kind of, you know, mix it up just a little bit and not just have one thing. But yeah, you know, that's some of the stuff I have going on. I've been kind of jumping in about all bunch of stuff in today's episode, but we shot through 26 minutes, so I think that's going to wrap us up today. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode, and I hope everybody has a happy and safe week. And if you have any questions regarding today's episode, be sure to drop a comment below, and I'll catch you in the next episode. And of course, what did you make in Minecraft today? Let me know in the comments section.